Hello, my name is Sin. This year, I'm restarting my artistic career and attempting to start a small stationery business called Monotonous Diary. This is my artist diary. It's been a while since my last video, and honestly, not much has happened. I worked on a program book / advertisement book for a nonprofit. It's something that I do almost every year, and this year I really appreciated having this gig because they do pay me, and it helped pay for my bills this past month. I hadn't done much art throughout most of July, and basically went through a slump after my shop launch. But I think I needed that time to take a break and readjust or reevaluate my goals, my style, and my brand. And also how I wanted to continue making content for YouTube. For now, I think I'm going to stick with the whole artist diary and try to include more everyday life moments, including my thoughts and whatnot. Not saying that it'll be particularly interesting nor unique, but most of what you, my regular viewers, have mentioned that these things are interesting to you, so we'll try it out to the best of my abilities. During my break, I mostly played games and read books, and read a lot of fanfics. I've been on a binge to get through all 3 Witcher games before the 4th one comes out. And I've been meaning to play these games for the longest time, and finally got through the first 2 games and all its wildly shitty graphics. I've only just started the 3rd game, though I foresee it'll be a while before I actually finish, because this past couple of weeks, I've been on a sudden art creating spree. And you'll see a lot of that in this video. But first off, I went against my word of not buying any new art supplies until I'm actually out of something that I actually need, or if it was practically free. And by free, it's like using a $10 coupon on a $10 sketchbook, which I ended up paying nothing for. So, I bought gouache paints. If you've been following my journey, you know that I've been learning how to paint with gouache this entire year. And recently, I decided that I needed a better red. Something that wouldn't dry into crumbly rocks and become nearly impossible to re-wet. But buying 1 tube of paint seems ridiculous for the amount of shipping I'd have to pay. So I decided, well, I kind of wanted another yellow that wasn't so translucent in its pigment. And from there, I also wanted a better brown color than I already had. And maybe a green that's pretty close to what I normally have to mix so that I don't have to keep mixing it. And then I saw this gray, which is more like a blue gray, and just fell in love with it. And that's how I ended up with 6 new gouache paints and free shipping. Quite honestly, I do really love all these colors that I got here. This palette has such autumn vibes, and I'm really excited to create pieces that match the upcoming season. Even though our summer here is pretty much like a spring, it's a very mild weather. And not that I'm complaining, because I really hate the heat. Fall and winter are my favorite seasons. I started the Summer Alps Art Challenge hosted by Petite Crocus after the challenge had ended. I actually didn't know about this challenge until day 10, but I did decide to do the challenge anyways. It is a July challenge, and it was still July, and I really liked the way the challenge was laid out. There are 10 prompts related to the Summer Alps, and with each prompt, you're also provided with a reference photo. It was very interesting to see how everyone utilized this reference photo. Many of them used it loosely and brought in a lot of their own style. For me, I haven't really figured out what is, quote, my style, unquote. I'm still working on not painting exactly what I see and bringing in more personal interpretations. Lately, I've been into using yellows as my sky, and with this challenge, I started adding in more pinks and purples to the sky instead of just blue. I'm also experimenting with pinks and purples into the groundscape instead of only using greens and browns for the grass. It's hard to experiment with style while also trying to figure out how the medium works. I have gotten better at figuring out how to get the right consistency for gouache, especially when re-wetting dried gouache. But the whole style thing still eludes me. I have always had to keep reminding myself to stop trying to make a photorealistic painting because I don't actually want to be a photorealistic painter. In this mountainscape painting, I found myself painting over the mountains multiple times. Each time thinking, oh, the shading doesn't look right, or I need to bring in more color to give it more character, or the paint strokes here look too odd, or this section could use more rendering. But as I watch back through the footage, there have been moments where I wish I just hadn't painted over that section because it looked so much better. But that's just the nature of experimenting and learning. At the very least, I can always take stills from the progress from these videos. So this is the palette that I currently use. It is a plastic well palette, and it comes with a lid that also has a silicone liner to keep it from leaking. Unfortunately, this specific palette has parts of the silicone does not actually fit to the edges of this lid, so this palette is not actually leak proof. But I still use it because I like how the wells are rounded on the bottom. Kind of makes it easier to like get into the non-existent corners, and just it has a bigger well than most. I found that using this type of palette really helps with getting the right consistency of the gouache once I re-wet them, instead of using the butcher palette that I used to use. So with the gouache paints that I got, I want to incorporate these colors into this palette. But as you can see, it's kind of gnarly. So my first step is actually to clean up this palette and make some room for the new colors that I want, and also get rid of this chalky red that I really don't like anymore. I don't know who finds this interesting, but you guys said you wanted to see more of my day-to-day, including art and whatever I do throughout the day. Well, I'm eating a block of tofu. I don't know how this interests you guys, but that's what I'm doing. I'm taking a break and I'm eating a block of tofu. This next topic is about growing your art account, or more specifically, my experience with growing my art account. A lot of people say it's about posting every day or posting consistently. Other people say it's about the quality of your art. And honestly, I've seen artists grow in so many different ways. There isn't one guaranteed success method because we're all different and we all react to things differently. I, for one, dislike creating videos where I ramble about everything and anything. I know a lot of people really enjoy that type of content, but I honestly don't have that much to say on my mind. Even now, I'm spending over a week just writing out a script for this video. I really don't understand how people can come up with so many different things to say. My mind is generally empty all the time. When I'm painting, I'm usually listening to music or an audiobook. If I'm ever thinking too much, it's usually a new product design or how I'm gonna go about making it or about the things that just makes me angry, which I prefer not to think about. Back to the topic, how I grew my art account. So, a bit of background. I started a new Instagram account at the beginning of this year, and I had under 50 followers for the longest time. I also used Threads heavily and found that most of my engagement came from Threads. I knew I wanted to keep my Instagram for more finished works and maybe reels, therefore works in progress and chatter went on Threads. Back then, I tried really hard to post something every day, but I quickly burnt out. Trying to fit time every day to create something, or more time in a single day to create multiple things, was exhausting. Trying to come up with new content was even more exhausting. I was painting, recording, video editing, photographing, photo editing, and then coming up with some sort of interesting description almost every day. I really wasn't enjoying this process. So I took a break. It was more of an unwanted slump where everything in life seemed kind of dull, and this was also right after I launched my shop. Basically, I didn't know what I wanted to do anymore. During my month off from making art and posting anything, my social media presence tanked, and so did the engagement. But that's to be expected. However, just because you take a break, it doesn't mean that the community disappears. I found myself really enjoying the Summer Alps Art Challenge and created a lot of new pieces that I was really proud of. I made an effort to take decent lighting photos with hopefully aesthetic prop setup and kept the photo quality consistent. I noticed really quickly that the engagement on these pieces were a lot higher than my previous ones, even though I'd taken a month off from not posting anything. This led me to think, well, the quality of art and the photos that you take actually matters, but the growth of your art also matters. But honestly, I didn't really care that much in the end. A lot of what's needed to grow your art account is to actually create art. And a lot of art. And the growth of your art. It's hard to create and grow when your mindset is so much on the statistics and numbers. If you're just starting out, focus on the creating and what it is that motivates you and inspires you to create and keep creating. Everything else comes with it. My art account grew as my passion and skills grew. With my current experience, improving my skills is a better way to grow my account than trying to be analytical about the statistics, the algorithm, the likes, and the comments. Honestly, I don't know when the best time to post when the most people are looking at their social media accounts because we're also going through an age where people are trying to spend less time on social media. So I post when it's most convenient for me. My audience will see it when they see it. And if they don't see it, well, then I hope they see the next one. And I know I have the few reliable friends who will always look back on my work no matter how many days have passed. And that's how I'm growing my art account. But also, I do maybe spend too much time on threads commenting on other people's posts, and that generally also helps with engagement. So, my phone died. It was Sunday night, and I was just heading upstairs to get ready for bed. I've been finishing my daily routine on Pikmin Bloom. It's a gamified pedometer app that I've been obsessed with. And basically, my phone was working as I put it in my pocket and walked up the stairs. And when I got to my bedroom and took it out of my pocket, I found that it had just turned off. My first reaction was, oh dang, it crashed and restarted again. It's not something surprising because when they released the whole Gemini AI thing, it's been crashing my phone constantly until I turn off that entire thing. But this time, I couldn't get it to turn back on. I thought, oh, maybe the battery just died, you know? But I knew I still had 20% left, or more than 20% left. And when I plugged it in, the phone did not register any charging. So basically, it's dead. The cost to get it fixed is not worth it, especially with all the other issues I've had with it, so I just bought a new phone. It's gonna take over a week for it to ship, and yes, I did consider just going to the store, but the discount and a zero interest payment plan through my phone service was a better deal and kind of worth the wait. That does mean I am using an iPad for all my social media stuff. It really sucks. An iPad is not light. I bought some supplies from Amazon to make future products with, and I thought I would show you some of the stuff that I got. So, first thing is, this is a pad or a book compound, and I got this because I wanted to make my own notepads, which means like adding the little glue at the top of the notepad so you can rip them off. My tester, I did actually make one a while ago, and I just used PVA glue. So, and it does work pretty well, except I find that the top is kind of like sticky with the PVA glue, and I'm hoping the pad compound is a little different. This is what they use officially with no pad glue. So I wanted to try that out. And then I got some just cellophane bags, a small one for the small magnetic bookmarks that I want to make. And then this one is for the letter sets that I also want to make. And this is roughly the size that it's gonna be. So it's gonna have like loose leaf sheets of letter paper with envelopes, and then like a sheet of stickers to seal up the letter. And this one I am very excited for. This is a corner puncher, except instead of rounded, I have 3 different types of like more unique designs. And I was gonna use these for the bookmarks. So it gives it more like vintagey, unique type of corner instead of just rounded. I do already have a rounded corner punch, so this, if I ever wanna go back to doing rounded, I can always do rounded. Here's another size of cellophane bag. I don't really remember what this one is specifically for. I don't know, but now I have it. I bought it for a reason, probably, even though I can't remember. And then this is the koala cardstock paper, but it is actually matte finished on one side, and then the other side is just plain cardstock. So with the matte finish, it's supposed to handle the ink better and just like more clean, like a matte photo paper instead of just cardstock. Because usually cardstock paper does not have like the same finish as the matte photo paper, at least in my opinion. So I wanted to try out this paper to see if it's any good. If it is, then I will be using this for a lot of my magnetic bookmarks, because one side is going to be printed on the other side I actually need it to be unfinished so that I can glue magnets on top of it. And then I bought this as a whim. I am not sure if this is actually going to be any good or if it's that compatible with my printer. It is a vinyl sticker paper that is actually transparent. It says clear down here. It does also state that it is not waterproof, but I am gonna put like a clear, transparent, laminate on top to help with the waterproofness. But I did wanted to see if anyone makes like a transparent sticker paper for home printing use. Ooh. That is actually very transparent. I'm gonna be interested to see how this actually prints, and maybe I'll do a follow-up once I do print on this paper to see if it's worth repurchasing again. The last thing in here, a flexible magnetic adhesive sheet. I wanted to do magnetic bookmarks, but instead of using the magnetic rounds, which I do have, I wanted to do full sheets so that when it folds in half, it is actually not as thick as the magnets. Because these are only 2 millimeters thickness, so that will make it 4 millimeters total. And that's usually thinner than doing like the craft DIY magnetic rounds. And like my problem with using magnetic bookmarks is that I don't want to put such a thick thing in my books and have it kind of like get pressed into the pages. So I would print them on like a sticker paper and then put it on here and then cut them out with the Cricut cutter and do all the folding and stuff. If that works, great. If it doesn't, then I will be able to make magnets of my stuff. Those are the things that I got. I did get one more thing, which is actually a heavy-duty guillotine to cut through like a thick stack of paper at a time. That's not up here in my studio yet. It is still downstairs in the den next to the front door because it is ridiculously heavy and I can't carry such a heavy thing upstairs right now. But you'll probably see it sometime in my videos at some point, because I am like gung-ho going to do the notepads. You'll probably see these items more in my future videos or vlogs. I will probably talk more about them as I use them to see if they're actually worth getting again. So I decided to make my next shop update with the Summer Alps painting collection. This will include 10 5x5-inch matte prints, 10 2x2-inch matte stickers, and 4 bookmarks. Really, there isn't much to talk about in my product creating session. I guess I can just mention the tools and materials that I have. I know a lot of starting artists who wants to make and sell their own prints or stickers have a lot of questions about materials and tools. I'm pretty open with sharing what I use, but also remember that the computer, the software, and a specific combination of tools and materials all affect the end result. And what I mean by that is, well, in my experience, using the Cricut cutter, I have a lot of issues with die-cut stickers and most laminates. So to prevent the laminate from getting a serrated edge, I have to do multiple cut passes at lower pressure. This then causes this very strange issue where the laminate peels away from the edges of the sticker. I don't know why, but I've only had one brand of laminate that does not create this issue. My friends with non-Cricut cutter cutting machines do not have this problem. So anyways, tools. I primarily work off of an M1 MacBook Pro. My printer is the Epson EcoTank 8550. I have a Cricut Maker 3 cutting machine. I have various manual cutters that you can see in this video. The paper cutter is a 12-inch with one of those safety self-sharpening blades where you really gotta try to actually cut yourself. I don't know the brand of that one. I also have a cheap laminator from Amazon that does hot and cold laminating. Honestly, I don't actually use it that much. On to the paper materials. For stickers, I use the Joeza matte vinyl sticker paper and HTV Ront matte vinyl sticker for actual products. They're both waterproof and also repositionable while still being very sticky. I also use Koala's matte vinyl sticker for product packaging and anything else that needs a sticker material. For prints and bookmarks, I use Koala's double-sided matte photo paper, 69 pounds or 260 GSM. It's got a smooth finish and prints very vibrantly. One day, I like to find a texture paper that's still heavyweight for prints. For laminates, I primarily use Auragard's 210 matte and gloss. For anything not being cut via Cricut cutter, I will use Avery's gloss laminate. For holographic laminates, it's honestly whatever I find on Amazon for a decent deal in the designs that I like. Koala brand's holographic laminate is pretty good, but I don't exactly like the multi-pack because I don't like all of the designs it includes. I do also have a collection of random cardstocks for printing packaging, info cards, and thank you cards. So I think I'm gonna go with the basic rounded corners instead of the scallop one. I think overall it just looks a lot cleaner and doesn't distract away from the art itself. They're both nice, but I think I just like the rounded corner just a lot more than the scallop ones. Maybe if I had a design bordering the scallops or following the scallops, I might like it more, but not for this series. It would all just be rounded instead. let me show you just how much inventory I actually created for this shop launch. Because I am not actually expecting any sales, maybe like a couple, I don't create a high volume of inventory because I don't want to be stuck with a whole bunch of this. And it's also really easy for me to just quickly make more when I need it. So like the bookmarks, I made one sheet of each design, so there's 5 of each except for one of them had a defect, so one of them was just 4. The stickers, I believe it's 12, fits one sheet of sticker paper. So there is 12 of each design. For the prints, I have 4 copies of each design. There's 10 design totals with 2 extras from the test prints or the original print setup of my printer. And then for these prints, I printed out 4 on an 11 by 17 paper, and I gave a couple away, and I sold a few of these already. So there's one left. I will reprint once that one gets sold. For the postcards, these guys, I believe there is 3 total of each design. And then I just have a stack of thank you cards that it'll always be there. I don't think I will be changing that design for a bit, at least maybe through the end of the year it'll stay like that. But that's the inventory that I have. It's very small, but since I print in-house, I can just restock them whenever. I started this painting on a whim and without any plans or direction. I had watched a reel from an artist who showed how to put down a smooth, opaque layer of gradient gouache. I thought about doing that, but usually when I put down an opaque layer, I would at the very least have a general idea of what I wanted to paint. Because too many layers of thick gouache can get quite muddy for me. What I did do was start off by wetting the entire paper. I'm using an Arches 100% cotton cold press watercolor paper because it handles heavy amounts of water very well. It also dries without buckling the paper. I believe I started off using watercolor paints and kind of just dabbled paint randomly everywhere. Again, I have no idea what I'm doing. I switched over to gouache and started painting some flower-like shapes. I'm not actually that good at painting flowers, and I always get the petal count wrong. I think at this time I was thinking about like a field of flowers, like those wildflower paintings, but closer up. But then I decided that my flower bases look kind of like shit, and they were super inconsistent. I also just did not know how to move forward. I tried adding additional layers to the flower in hopes of rendering them more, but it really just didn't look that great. And then I decided to switch over and add grass, because I guess that's just my default thing to do to save a painting these days. There was this one flower that was painted away from the main cluster, and I kind of decided that it looked kind of like a leaf, so I left it. And then kept layering different shades of blues and purple grass on this bottom left-hand half of the paper. I didn't actually work on this painting in one go. It was more of a work on it when I needed a break from doing other stuff, And at the very end, I decided to go back to the wild flower idea, but do smaller flowers. And of course, there's always that one flower that has way too many petals compared to all the others. I also decided to choose a reddish flower color because my background has red in it and it was just kind of randomly there and not very cohesive. So, red flowers, blue and purple grass, the sky is a gradient of red and blue. I don't know, I think it turned out pretty cool. What do you guys think? This next painting was similar to the last, where I didn't really have a set idea, but the goal was to make a thank you card background. While I do sometimes paint digitally, the majority of my work has been done traditionally, and I've been thinking about how to keep my style and brand cohesive. I also have been thinking more about how to make more designs for letter paper and notepads, both which needs like a clear area in the center to write on, so the designs must be more around the borders. There was no real thought when I started painting. I reached for the yellow because it felt right, and then it didn't, and thus I added some green. From there, my thought was, what the hell am I doing? And of course, I gravitated towards making leaves. And then started adding this orangey red, not really quite sure what color I mixed, but I think it was primarily the cadmium red medium hue color that I recently got. This was the point where I thought, oh, maybe I should do like a one side versus the other side. And then the paint accidentally touched the green. I realized how nice the two colors blended together and then started adding this orangey red into the green section. It's kind of like they were the birds of paradise flower. From there, my only thought was, it needs more layers to create more depth and texture. So I basically just painted shapes that I was familiar with. I added this layer of darker, warm grayish color to give it some contrast. Honestly, I think I was trying to mix a color that didn't turn out what I wanted it to be, but it still worked out. To finish off, dots. Lots of little bright color dots and some darker color dots to give it contrast. Because I'm currently in the phase where little dots of sparkle brings joy into a piece. In the end, it totally turned out way better than I thought and hoped for. You know, sometimes experiments doesn't turn out well, but every now and then something amazing does. I now have a better grasp and understanding of what I can do for future stationery design. I just finished this painting, and the idea for this was to do a border design so that I can have something written in the center here. And originally I didn't actually have an orientation in mind, but I ended up settling with this orientation where the swath of green is more on the bottom. And this is actually turned into my thank you cards for the orders, and they printed out beautifully. I also didn't realize, but I did the colors for autumn. So even though my next release is actually for summer, my thank you cards are very autumn themed. And I printed this out on the new Koala matte cardstock paper that I recently got, and it prints out beautiful. So again, one side of this cardstock is like a matte photo finish, and then the other side is just plain cardstock paper. Originally, I thought like, hey, I have a ton of like cardstock paper, this Astro Bright, like smooth index, I have a shit ton of this. Why not just use that up? But it printed out like really dull, and I don't know what I was expecting because cardstock usually prints out duller than you expect. So if you have any like high contrast artworks that you want to print out, cardstock may not be the best for that. Which is why I really like the Koala brand cardstock because of the matte finish on one side, you really get that vibrancy coming through on the printout versus like the cardstock just does not. It's very dull. And you know, I don't hate the cardstock version, but I also do hate the cardstock version. So I think moving forward, I will probably repurchase the koala cardstock paper, even though like my original idea was to use it for the magnetic bookmarks. I'm probably still gonna use it for the magnetic bookmarks because they print out really nicely, and my printer likes it. No issues with the printing, no issues with the printing quality, super vibrant. I would actually recommend this paper moving forward, and it's not too expensive either. So, ta-da!